Hey guys, John V here from PhoneArena. Right now you're watching our in-depth video comparison between the Apple iPad Air and the Microsoft Surface 2. Naturally, these two tablets are going to be competing against one another this holiday season to find out exactly who's going to get more attention, the iPad Air or the Microsoft Surface 2. Now, there's a lot to like about both, and being successive devices, they're treated to updated software experiences and, of course, the hardware. So let's jump in and find out exactly how these two compare. First, we got to say that these two tablets have some amazing looking designs. So honestly, we could go either way with these two. Now, they have their own unique characteristics that really make them stand out. Out of everything, we got to say that it's the thin and lightweight construction of the iPad Air that catches our attention. It's both thinner, lighter than the Surface 2, so it's easier to hold in the hand. At the same time, it still has that premium construction thanks to its brushed aluminum casing. Now, the Surface 2 also has some quality elements to its design. First and foremost, it's just that industrial design that really stands out with this one. It relies on these angular cutouts on the side, giving it a very unique look. At the same time, the choice of materials are also pretty premium. It has that vapor mag material, which gives it a good amount of sturdiness. But when it comes to the in-the-hand feel, just because of the angular cutouts, it does feel a little bit awkward to hold. At the same time, it's not as lightweight or thin compared to its rival. So the iPad Air features a 9.7-inch 2048 by 1536 IPS LCD panel, which gives it a pixel density count of 264 pixels per inch. Whereas with the Surface 2, it sports a slightly larger 2.6-inch 1920 by 1080 IPS LCD display with its 208 pixels per inch pixel density. On paper, the iPad Air might have the higher pixel density count, but honestly, when it comes to real-world usage, whether we're looking at far away, very close, it's really hard to distinguish which of these two tablets sport the better-looking details. Relying on good old IPS LCD technology, there are many similar characteristics between these two displays. First of all, you have some very natural, neutral-looking color tones, so it's very easy in the eyes. But we do notice that the brightness output is slightly stronger with the iPad Air, so it offers slightly better visibility outdoors where the sun is present. And the last thing we notice is that the iPad Air's display just has better viewing angles, doesn't distort as much as the Surface 2's display. We actually like it how the Surface 2 features some PC-like ports around its housing, whereas with the iPad Air, the only thing we have here is just the Lightning docking port, which is used for data and power connectivity, but in order to get video out functionality, you need to purchase a separate adapter for that. With the Surface 2, we have a full-size USB 3.0 port, so you connect a variety of peripherals to it. You have a micro HDMI output for easy out video connection if you have the cable. You have the magnetic connection port here for the power, so even if you pull on the cable, it's not going to mess it up, it's just going to dislodge. And the other thing about the Surface 2 is that it features a micro SD card slot. And lastly, the other cool thing about the Surface 2 is that it features a kickstand, which is a rarity amongst tablets in general, and it's great that this time it offers an additional angle for better use in our laps. So yeah, they both feature rear cameras, 5 megapixels in size, but it's only the iPad Air that features autofocus, whereas it's not available with the Surface 2. As for the front-facing cameras, you have a 1.2 megapixel one in the iPad Air versus the larger 3.5 megapixel one in the Surface 2. Let's shift gears and talk about the respective platform experiences. You have the updated iOS 7 experience with the iPad Air versus the also equally updated Windows RT 8.1 experience with the Surface 2. Despite the updates and enhancements found with the iOS 7 experience, we still prefer the visual flair that's attached to the Windows RT 8.1 experience of the Surface 2. There's just a lot going on with the start screen. You have the fancy looking live tiles, which you could resize to different sizes, and at the same time, just a little bit more personalization control over the more static and simplified look of the iOS 7 experience on the iPad Air. Even though we still like the visual flair attached to the Windows RT 8.1 experience, we prefer the iPad and the way it handles notifications, just because with a quick swipe like that, you gain access to the notification center, and this is the centralized hub where you can see everything. So it's a lot more organized versus having to look through all the different live tiles with the Surface 2, and it just has more work attached to it. In addition, with the iPad Air, we really appreciate that we have quick access to the control center, so we can gain access to some of the connectivity features and also adjust the brightness setting of the display, whereas with the Surface 2, we got to go through all the different settings and menus just to change different things. It's still something that requires some fine-tuning over with the iPad, but the multitasking aspects handle a lot better with the Surface 2. That's because what we can do is we can launch one program. If you want to have another one opened, we could actually just click and drag it to the side right there. So you can have two things running simultaneously, and it's also great that you could adjust the length of both. So you can have one that's larger than the other. Whereas with the iPad Air, the way you do it's the old-fashioned way. You just run one program, and then if you want to switch to another one, double press the home button, and you can jump right in, or use the 5-finger swipe method like that, but it just doesn't seem as practical compared to the Surface 2. When it comes to processing power, it's really tough to say which one outperforms the other just because they're both zippy and snappy with pretty much the same operations. Well, the iPad Air is most notable for featuring a 64-bit base processor. Rarity in the tablet space, it's actually the dual-core 1.4 GHz Apple A7 chip coupled with 1 GB RAM, and honestly, it is just one fast thing. It's also pretty flattering here with the Surface 2. It's powered by the quad-core 1.7 GHz NVIDIA Tegra 4 processor coupled with 2 GB of RAM, and it is also a speed demon with its performance. Productivity-focused users will probably gravitate more towards the Surface 2. That's because it's preloaded with Microsoft Office 2013. So you have things like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. And the nice thing about it, it replicates the experience you get on a desktop. Whereas with the iPad Air, you can still download something similar with the iWork suite. So you can still do things like create Word documents and even spreadsheets. Between them, it's the iPad that continues to have the diverse ecosystem of third-party apps versus the Surface 2. That's because iOS has been in development longer than Windows RT 8.1, and with the time difference between the two releases, it's just that we get finer-looking third-party applications for the iPad. Honestly, the two tablets are great when it comes to typing up messages with their respective on-screen keyboards, but you get a slightly wider layout with the Surface 2. It's a little bit more boxy with the iPad Air, but nevertheless, they both exhibit the same qualities, very responsive, well-sized keys, and you have different options too. So for example, they both feature split-style keyboards, which is great, which is very useful for things like the portrait option. Not surprisingly, they're both awesome when it comes to the web surfing experience, just because pages load very quickly, even complex ones that are rich with multimedia, and as you can see, their page rendering and even navigational controls are similar to one another. There's just something about the modern UI with Windows RT 8.1 that really catches our attention, and we see it here with the music players. It's a little bit more conventional with the iPad's music player. There's just this dynamic element that we really like with the Surface 2. Now, they both feature two speakers, but it's the iPad Air that produces the stronger tones between them. Out of the box, there's more video codec support with the Surface 2, so you have things like DivX, H.264, XVID, and even MPEG-4. You gotta do some converting over on the iPad Air to get them to load properly, but as far as the experience, both are more than ample just because the playbacks are smooth, so you have their sharp-looking displays, very vibrant-looking colors too, but with the kickstand on the Surface 2, it just adds to the ideal experience. Being tablets and all, it doesn't surprise us that their camera apps are pretty much light and barren when it comes to manual controls or even some shooting modes. With the iPad Air, you could switch from video, photo, and even a square mode. You have the option of using HDR photos as well if you want. And over in the Microsoft Surface 2, you have photos, videos, you could switch to a panoramic shot, and on top of that, you could adjust the exposure as well. At the same time, there are also some other pleasing elements with the iPad Air's quality. For starters, the colors have more of a vibrant, punchy tone to them, where it's a little bit more washed out with the Surface 2. And finally, when it comes to low lighting performance, they both have softer looking details and heavier noise present, but we still find the iPad Air to be the device to go with. Also, it's the iPad Air that delivers the better looking 1080p videos just because there's a good balance between exposure, colors, and details. Very crisp looking, whereas with the Surface 2, we tend to notice a lot more artifacting elements as we're panning, and details are a lot softer looking. And finally, when it comes to audio recording, we just notice that there's more of a mute tone exhibited with the Surface 2. Power users don't have to worry when it comes to battery life just because we're able to get through a solid 8-hour work shift with heavy usage out of the two tablets. Now, when it comes to normal usage, it just seems as though the Surface 2 delivers a little bit more battery life. In fact, we're able to get at least one solid day of normal usage with the iPad Air versus the 2 days out of the Surface 2. Let's talk about pricing here for a moment. The iPad Air starts at $500 for the base 16GB Wi-Fi model, and with the Microsoft Surface 2, it starts out at $450, and that's for a 32GB Wi-Fi option. Honestly though, it's a tough decision which one we go to. If you want to stick with the safe approach, check out the iPad Air. It is $50 more expensive, but then again, you're getting something that's thin and light and has a really diverse ecosystem of third-party applications. And as you see in the performance, it excels in pretty much all the categories that matter. Now, if you're daring or just want to experiment with something new, you want to check out the Microsoft Surface 2. You're going to save your money, $50 less than the iPad Air. At the same time, it's still a well-rounded offering, cool design. The kickstand really helps. The ecosystem might not be as diverse versus the iPad Air, but it's still growing nonetheless. So if you guys want to learn more about either the Apple iPad Air or the Microsoft Surface 2, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. John V. Thanks for watching.